Hi everybody, welcome to week 5. Congratulations on nearing the end of the course. I will be praying for you as you work on your research papers this week and finish up your course material. I pray that you will finish strong, and I look forward to the work that you'll be sending my way. Today we are going to look at chapters 12 and chapters 13, and it kind of finishes us up with our time period and lands us right on the cusp of the 16th century, and two significant things that we need to look at. So let's begin with chapter 12 and the pastoral peoples on the global stage, the Mongol movement. For your learning objectives in this chapter, I want you to focus specifically on two things. I want you to be able to investigate the impact of the Mongol Empire on world history. And then the second thing is I want you to consider the implications of Eurasian trade sponsored by the Mongols. The Mongols are a very interesting empire, and so I want you to look at their impact and then also how they affected global trade. Okay, this is a map of kind of the expanse of the Mongol Empire, and Strayer will do a relatively well job of kind of exploring the rise of the Mongol Empire and several of the leaders, and then he will look at how they affected the Eurasian continent. And it's very interesting. He makes the point that even though it is a large empire, as you can see from this map, the lasting history that they make is not really all that significant. There's much more of a modern day influence from China and India and the Islamic world and also Europe, not so much from the Mongols. And so he'll explore why that is, and some of their different military tactics, how they interacted with the Russian people and with the Persians, and then also, of course, the Chinese. So that will be just kind of an overview of what you'll be looking at as far as the Mongol Empire and how there are still, even from 1200 to 1500, there are still kind of pastoral groups of people, which are combination hunter-gatherers / farmers, and how they have an impact specifically through the Mongol Empire. All right, and that brings us to our last chapter, chapter 13, the worlds of the the worlds of the 15th century, and this is kind of an overview chapter. Kind of preparing, encapsulating a lot that we've already talked about, and then also kind of preparing us for World Civ 2, if you're planning on taking that from the 1600s through the present. But there, in this chapter, the learning objectives, a couple things, of course. I want you to be able to compare conditions in China and Europe, as they're on the cusp of the modern world. Okay, so what's happening in China, what's happening in Europe. And then I want you to be able to consider why Europe came to dominate the world in the modern era. And then thirdly, I want you to be able to explore the role of the Islamic world in the 15th century. So those are the three main things, and I want you to look at this map on the next slide real quick. Okay, I want you to look particularly first at the map on the right. this is kind of exactly what I was just referring to. These are the three major areas that are existing the world in existing in the world and ruling the world in the 15th century. We have China and Buddhist countries to the east. In the center and in Africa, we have the Islamic nations, and it's not really a combined empire at this time, but those are areas all ruled by Muslims. And then in Europe, we also have the Christian tradition that has grown out of the Roman Empire and the Western tradition. And so we will, Strayer will look at each of those areas, what's going on during that time, during the 15th century, and kind of give us a little foretaste of how those areas go on to influence the world in the modern era. At the same time, however, looking at North and South America, there are significant empires that are alive and well in the 15th century as well, and so Strayer will explore both of those, the Incan Empire and the Aztec and Mayan Empire in North and South America, and he'll focus in each of these areas. He'll focus on matters of industrialization, matters of urbanization, people moving in and out of cities, and then also the role that government plays, and whether these countries and these regions had a strong united government, a strong united culture, and again the interchange between them. And so this brings us up right into the cusp of the modern era, and there's so much from this time period that still has very much affected our world today, and so I always think that that's a very interesting perspective to keep in mind as you're finishing up your reading. But I hope that when you think about the last 5 weeks, we've gone from the very earliest peoples all the way up into roughly 2, 3, 4,000 major years later after the first major civilizations, and we now have the idea of culture and of religion and city-states and state-based civilizations, and so the world has dramatically changed from the beginning of this course until now, and so I hope you'll keep that in mind as you go about your work this week. And again, as I said, I look forward to receiving your research papers and your final week's worth of work. It's been a joy to have you, and I will pray blessing for you as you go about your work.